Tonight, Premier Andrew Furey responds to tariff threats from the United States. That story and
a rugged road on the province's west coast is getting some repairs, but the area's MHA says it's not good enough.
We ought to be doing a complete analysis of all of our coastline areas.
I'm Layla Baudouin in Corner Brook, and that story is coming up.
Look out if you're a shrimp or a turbot in the eastern Arctic. Canada's newest and largest fishing vessel is coming for you.
Today is just an incredibly rewarding and relieving day.
I feel so proud of Nunavut board members and employees and Newfoundland.
I'll take you on board the Inuksuq 2, coming up.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Welcome to Here and Now. The clock is ticking down to Inauguration Day in the United States. Meantime, the provincial government is preparing to deal with the possibility of major tariffs imposed by incoming President Donald Trump. Trump has threatened a 25% tariff on Canadian goods. In this province, that would be a hard hit to the oil and gas industry, fisheries, mining, as well as pulp and paper. Annual exports to the United States have totaled about $4.5 billion in recent years. Premier Andrew Furey says he hopes Trump changes his mind and warns tariffs could put jobs here at risk.
Some of our quick analysis shows, for example, 1 in 2 of people in the fishing industry could be impacted by this. 1 in 2 of people in the oil and gas sector could be impacted by this. 100% of aquaculture exports outside of Canada go to the United States. 60% of our fishery goes to the United States. Almost 90% of crab goes to the United States. So it will have an incredibly punishing impact on the people of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Residents on the Port-au-Port Peninsula are fed up with their seaside road and what's been done to save it from washing away. We brought you that story last night, and now government reacts to residents' call for action. But as CBC's Layla Baudouin reports, time is ticking for the crumbling piece of infrastructure.
Storm after storm, no packed ice, and the road is hanging by a thread. The community is calling for a seat at the table about how repairs are done, use their knowledge about local weather and changes in their environment to be a part of those plans.
This needs to be done in the sense that we recognize climate change, we recognize the impacts of climate change, so you can't ignore it.
Opposition leader in Stephenville Port-au-Port MHA Tony Wakeham says the work that's been done hasn't met the area's needs, nor what we are seeing in terms of storms and their impact, not just here, but province-wide.
I would give us a grade of an F. We ought to be doing a complete analysis of all of our coastline areas and getting ahead of this. We know the storms that we're getting now are causing more and more destruction to our communities, to our properties, and yet we continue to keep doing the same things.
Rocks have been added, but they're no match to the pounding of high-impact waves. Wakeham says a more sustainable solution is needed.
You can't simply come out and say, oh, we'll grade the road back, we'll take all the debris off the road again and we'll put it back in. That's not a solution. That's just turning around and putting a Band-Aid on it.
The province does have plans to come back here and fix it up. Telling the CBC Today, the remainder of work on this 1.3 kilometer stretch of road, including slope stabilization and paving, will be completed when the construction season resumes this spring. That contract is valued at $2.8 million and was awarded to Rock Construction. As for the road pavement, government says that's not included in the contract and will be conducted through a separate tender following the stabilization work. When asked about consultation with locals on what they are seeing on the ground, things like wind direction and storm intensity, a spokesperson responded with the following. The province says it consulted with the local service district and will continue to monitor the area and protect the road. 1.3 kilometers will be stabilized. They say there is a buffer of land between the ocean and the remainder of the road. And the department says there's no immediate threat.
Like a couple of these poles here are almost gone again.
Back in Fox Island River, Point Mall, people like Yves Leroy are keeping a close eye on the water and hazards.
The anchoring for the pole is now down into the salt water.
With storms packing a stronger punch during the winter and no ice in sight, like much of coastal Newfoundland and Labrador, it's a waiting game. For Fox Island River, Point Mall, that might mean watching the situation closely until repairs start again this spring. Layla Baudouin, CBC News, Corner Brook.
5 years ago today, I was here at 6:30 in the morning to go on the radio to talk about the incoming storm. I knew what was coming, but what it would be, we had never seen this before. Snowmageddon, the day that didn't end. A few of us were stranded at work and I slept under my desk and then snowshoed home the next morning. It was a day I'll never forget. It was weather history and exactly why I became a meteorologist. So let me do some meteorology stuff. The powerful nor'easter battered the eastern half of the island. 78 to 90 plus centimeters of snow, extremely high winds, damaging coastal surge, and 17 hours of blizzard conditions shut down the St. John's airport, schools, grocery stores, and left thousands without power. The airport, it was closed to commercial traffic for 6 days. After the wind and snow, this, mountains of it. The military arrived 2 days later and it was all hands on deck. The grocery stores temporarily opened during the state of emergency and the lines were incredible. The shelves were mostly stocked in the metro area, but several containers of goods were still sitting at the OceanX docks in St. John's. Those were destined for grocery stores across the province, but getting out the Avalon was the hard part. With nowhere to go, people built snow forts in their backyards. For many, the only mode of transportation in the early days of the state of emergency was snowshoes and skis. Remember these guys? They were here to make a snowboarding film and got more than they bargained for. Snowmageddon brought life in St. John's to a standstill for 8 days. City staff worked around the clock to get it up and running again, and that experience means lessons learned.
We've had some meetings with the province. We need to do better with the state of emergency declarations. Our communities are so close-knit here that, and touching each other, that we have to have some uniformity when dealing with state of emergencies like that. So that's something that's still being worked on.
Before Snowmageddon, the City of St. John's already recognized changes in weather. It declared a climate emergency just 2 months before the storm. Breen says climate change projections are now baked into plans for new infrastructure to make sure whatever's built can handle it.
We're seeing increases in not only in total rainfall, but in rate of rainfall. The storms are bringing more rain, and it's coming down at a faster rate. So we're upgrading our systems, our underground systems, making sure when we're building new infrastructure that it could handle the runoff that we have.
With our changing climate, the storms are becoming more intense, more frequent. So it's not a matter of if another Snowmageddon happens, it's when.
Well, there is some good news for winter sport enthusiasts in the province. Marble Mountain Ski Resort has officially opened for business. The first chair of the season made its way up the hill at 9 o'clock this morning. The opening was possible thanks to a cold weather stretch that allowed for artificial snowmaking. And while the Black Maria lift will be out of commission for maintenance this season, the east side of the mountain will open once it has enough snow.
This is actually 4 days earlier on the calendar than we started last year, even though there's very little natural snow in western Newfoundland. And we've got 6 runs for people today, which of course is only a small portion of the mountain, but that's where we always start. And then as conditions improve, which I know they will, or I'm very confident they will, we'll move across the mountain and more runs will be open all the time.
Well, a big moment in St. John's this afternoon for the seafood industry. A new vessel pulled into the harbor. Here Now's Terry Roberts got a tour.
If you're a turbot or a shrimp swimming in the Davis Strait, look out, because you might soon find yourself on the production line of this brand new $72 million state-of-the-art stern trawler.
Welcome to the brand new Inukshuk 2, Canada's newest and largest fishing vessel. All the big players in the offshore fishing industry gathered this afternoon in this downtown St. John's hotel. Of course, there was turbot and shrimp on the menu.
For their safety and the great accomplishment of many. Cheers. Cheers.
But also a glass of bubbly to celebrate the arrival of this new vessel, which will begin fishing in the eastern Arctic in about a month or so. Once on board, guests were treated to the latest advancements in seafood harvesting. The vessel includes 2 processing lines, one for shrimp and one for groundfish. There's 2 sprawling freezers that can accommodate 1,300 tons of turbot or 900 tons of shrimp. There's this robotic arm, which will mean less backache for the crew. And here's the business end, twin trawls for scooping up large amounts of seafood. The Inukshuk 2 silently sailed into St. John's Harbor earlier this week, its sleek hull catching the attention of marine enthusiasts, 80 meters from stem to stern. The Inukshuk 2 was designed in Norway, built in Turkey. It overcame a long list of challenges along the way, including a global pandemic. But is finally the realization of 5 years of planning and construction for Iqaluit-based Baffin Fisheries.
Today is just an incredibly rewarding and relieving day to have the Inukshuk 2 arrive in Canada.
Baffin Fisheries is owned by 5 Inuit communities in Nunavut. It's a big job creator for the Inuit, and profits are returned to the people.
I feel so proud of Nunavut board members and employees and Newfoundland staff and everyone who's been involved in this to make sure that this does go forward. It's something to be very proud of.
But half the crew is from Newfoundland and Labrador. The vessel will be serviced and maintained in this province. There's a corporate office in Paradise. There's a lack of ice-free ports in Nunavut, so the Inukshuk 2 will land its market-ready catch in ports such as Harbour Grace, Bay Roberts and St. Anthony, and then be shipped around the world. The Inukshuk 2 is replacing a nearly 40-year-old vessel of the same name. But this modern ship is not just a workboat. It's built for crew comfort as well.
For the Inuit workers we have on board, it'll be much more comfortable away from home. The Inukshuk 1 is older, cramped, tighter quarters, and this will just be a really nice work environment.
It's not an easy job, working in sometimes freezing conditions in the Arctic, away from home 5 to 6 months a year. But the big payoff, your bank account. No one on this vessel earns less than 6 figures a year. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, the president of MUN's Faculty Association says his group did not get to review the Education Accord's interim report before it was released to the public. Josh Lepofsky's remarks come after his resignation from the Accord's advisory board earlier this week. The interim report lays out ideas on how to improve the province's entire education system. The Faculty Association wanted to see 2 essential recommendations: more government funding for Memorial University and a seat on the Board of Regents for a faculty member. But Lepofsky says neither was included.
I really had to take stock of the way things had been going and ask myself some serious questions about whether this was a genuinely meaningful consultation process where input, whether positive, or critical, was being taken seriously. And with the rollout of the interim report, it really, sort of crystallized for me that this was not a meaningful consultation process.
Well, taking a look at what's going to happen over the next couple of days, for now it's quiet. But if we zoom out a little bit, we've got an area of low pressure moving in. This is going to bring some mild air to parts of the province, which which will bring some rainy conditions as well. But until we get there, the weather on the way over the next little bit will be a fairly quiet night. We do have some of that colder air in place up across Labrador. That will continue tonight. A lovely day tomorrow. Most of us seeing some sunshine, temperatures around where we should be sitting this time of year, and then the rain moves in. That'll be a Sunday, Monday thing. Temperatures much cooler on the backside of that. I'll get into all the details a little later.
Well, another St. John's restaurant is closing despite great reviews and full tables. Namjim has operated from Bannerman Brewery for over 4 years, but when the owners tried to find their own place, the numbers didn't add up. Zach Gowdy has the story.
I guess the scary thing is that we ultimately didn't necessarily go out of business for a lack of business. We're a successful, profitable business that was faced with the challenge of relocating and just were unable to make the numbers work. So I guess that's kind of what makes it a little bit scary. Hey, my name's Ian Brown.
I'm Gabe Roberge, and we are the co-chefs and co-founders and co-fellas of Namjim.
Co-guys.
Co-guys, co-dudes.
So basically we cook food that's inspired by Thailand, But our kind of little spin is that we try to cook it using kind of quintessentially Newfoundland ingredients.
We started as a pop-up like 4 years ago now, and then it was just kind of a right place, right time thing. Bannerman was like having a tough go, like keeping the kitchen kind of like consistently staffed and stuff. They wanted someone to come in and just kind of take the kitchen off their hands. They didn't want to think about it ever again, and we needed a home.
Yeah, so I guess with just inflation, margins just get a little tighter, and you know, it's such a big machine here at Bannerman that I don't think it really made sense for them any longer to be able to outsource the kitchen. So that kind of left us in a, I guess, like kind of homeless position. So we spent some time, you know, shopping around, looking at spots to potentially open up NAM Gym in its own brick and mortar. And we came close a few times, but it never really worked out in a way that we could make the numbers make sense. I mean, there's two ways you can go, right? You can rent a place and you can do some leasehold upgrades to kind of get the kitchen up to code, do the aesthetic changes that you want to make, or you can buy a place and kind of do the same. What we found was in both scenarios, by the time we, you know, made a down payment or, you know, put the first month's rent down and then did what was required to get a building up to code, there's really no room left in the budget to, you know, buy plates, to buy flatware, to have the first period's wages, to buy food. You're just, there's no cushion there financially to be able to really sleep at night.
Like obviously the inflation story, the post-COVID story, all that stuff, I'm sure anyone on the planet right now can relate to that. But I've at least felt more of a squeeze here than I've seen elsewhere at least. I've seen a lot more places close here than elsewhere, even though there's stuff closing everywhere. I think it's just alarming the amount of closures we've had in the past couple months.
What were you guys thinking and feeling and saying amongst yourselves while you were watching other successful St. John's restaurants, seeing Nook and Cannery close and seeing Curry Delight close?
Holy shit.
Yeah. It was real spooky for sure. And I think restaurant spending, according to all the data, is down across Canada. But I think St. John's is ultimately, it's not a huge metropolis. It's a pretty small town, so we don't really have the same, you know, influx of tourists as even like a city like Halifax, you know what I mean? I think a lot of times these talks can feel very theoretical, but when you're someone who wants to go out and you can physically see that, you know, a meal that you got 2 years ago is now, you know, $10 more than it was, maybe you all of a sudden can't afford it, and then, you know, that builds a resentment.
We have a few weeks left here. Our last day will be February 10th. I think the moral of this whole story, honestly, at this point should just be to support local aggressively and more so than ever before. You know, like we felt like we had to during COVID. It is so much more important now. Come eat our food, come eat everyone else's food, go to restaurants, go to bars, go out. You don't have to like get like a full like course tasting menu. You don't have to like buy the most expensive bottle of wine. Get a snack, come say hi, get one drink. I think we all just need to like really kind of like acknowledge the importance of that right now, just the communal support that we all need.
Our approach here in the province is to have a united approach within the province itself amongst industries. And I just concluded a meeting with industry leaders, union leaders, community leaders to ensure that we have a unified front across industries.
Premier Andrew Furey sat down with CBC to talk about Trump's tariff threats, which could have a major impact on the province's economy.
United Team Newfoundland.
Ashley, it's amazing to think that 5 years ago tonight, we were doing the show out in the loading bay dock here because the generator conked out because of Snowmageddon, and what an incredible weather day that was.
Yeah, we were all exhausted. We were all emotional. It was a crazy day for sure. Different than today.
Very
that is
different.
for sure. Yeah. Not all that bad this afternoon. Let's take a look at where we're sitting now as far as those temperatures go. -3 in St. John's. Those temperatures across the island are generally sitting there, and then up across Labrador, getting into that colder air as we have been for the last couple of days, into the minus teens right now, and those temperatures are going to continue to drop as we head through tonight. Not a whole lot happening weather-wise. In fact, sitting generally under a ridge of high pressure right now. A few flurries happening on the west coast, but all of the action is still well to our west, and that is going to move in as we head into tomorrow, and then eventually Sunday and Monday, bringing a pretty warm amount of air to parts of the island as we head through Sunday and then into Monday as well. So for tonight, quiet for most of us. Just the chance of a few flurries. Best chance of that will be west and south tonight, and then Labrador quiet as well. You'll see some clouds on the increase though, especially as we head towards Saturday morning. But overall, your overnight lows are starting to warm up just a little bit compared to where they have been for the last couple of nights. -17 in Lab City, -21 in Happy Valley Goose Bay. And then we do have those temperatures dipping, especially in low-lying areas across the island, somewhere between -10 and -15, but hanging on still to temperatures around -2 for St. John's. Winds again tonight, not overly impressive, but somewhere between 10 to 15 kilometers per hour. As we head into tomorrow, we'll start to see that snow move in for Lab West, or at least some flurries or light snow move in for Lab West. That'll head towards central areas of Labrador and then towards the north coast as we head into the afternoon. And the island portion of the province looks beautiful tomorrow. Some sunshine. We'll likely see a few flurries, potentially west and south again. But overall, it'll actually be a pretty lovely day. And then eventually southeastern portions of Labrador will see that snow arrive overnight and into the first part of Sunday. And that's when we'll start to see some of that milder air move in across the island as well. Temperatures tomorrow will hover somewhere around 0 or about +1 or even +2 for the east. The winds will generally be light, 10 to 15 kilometers per hour. A little more gusty though for those of you on the west coast, with temperatures hovering around 0 or -2. Perfect day for skiing on the west coast. Labrador, you are looking at temperatures starting to warm up. Like I said, minus single digits, going to hang on to those minus double digits though for Nain, hovering around -10. And those winds, especially along the strait, will be southwesterly gusting somewhere between 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. So Environment Canada still has that special weather statement in effect from Port aux Basques through to Burgeo. Now, this will likely be a rainfall warning, but we typically see those about 24 hours in advance. So eventually we will see that warning. But for now, Sunday morning, winds will start to pick up, especially for those of you in the southwest. And then the rain will arrive, and that will continue through most of Sunday with the heaviest rain in that special weather statement area. We could be talking about 40 to as much as 70 millimeters of rain in that time frame. And you can see gusts pretty much across the island through the day on Sunday, somewhere between 60 to as much as 90 kilometers per hour. Southeastern portions of Labrador as well. This will be snow for now, and you're also going to see some gusty winds associated with that. As the day goes on, and then into Monday morning, we will see that heavy rain head across the province, or head across the island rather, reaching the Avalon. And this is when we'll see those gusty winds as well, 70 to 80 kilometers per hour. And in behind that, another round moving in with even warmer air for our Monday. And again, another round of some wind. Now, and in behind that, the temperatures on Monday, especially for the west, will drop like a rock. And then we'll see some snow squalls develop. I'll get into the long-range forecast a little later.
Hi everyone, I'm Jane Adey, host of Land and Sea. Coming up this Sunday, a story of resettlement from Fair Island.
But is it going to be outdoors or is it going to be indoors?
Well, mostly indoors. It's going to be outdoors in the afternoon.
Sure.
Tom and Phyllis Cutler pulled their house across the water to Centerville in 1959.
That's the idea.
But Fair Island pulls them back again and again. Their summer home sits on the very spot they moved from so long ago. Summer weekends, there's life back in the old harbor. And when the food fishery is on, there's cod on every wharf. There are hints of what it must have been like back in the day.
This tickle used to be right full of schooners. 12 to 14 schooners here in the tickle.
Fair Island was known for its skilled fishermen, and most took those skills north to fish on the Labrador. Tom Cutler was 16 when he made his first trip. How long would you go for when you'd leave Fair Island?
We'd leave here about the middle of June, somewhere around there. Around the middle of June, and you'd be gone to probably the middle of September.
And that was a show called Resettlers Remember from 2011. That show is coming up this Sunday at 11:30. That's 11 o'clock in most of Labrador. And if you miss it on Sunday, you can always see it on Monday right after Here and Now, or you can find it online on CBC Gem or on CBC Newfoundland and Labrador's YouTube channel. We'll see you on Sunday.
Well, the premier of this province is heading to Washington to attend the U.S. inauguration on Monday. He sat down with on-the-go host Chrissy Holmes this afternoon to talk Trump and tariffs.
Premier, thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here.
Well, as the timeline toward this threat of 25% tariffs on U.S. imports gets closer, what is at the top of the priority list in terms of provincial interests for you?
Well, first of all, we hope that these aren't going to come into effect. I mean, the president has threatened it. We'll see on Monday, of course, on Tuesday, what's going to happen. But our approach here in the province is to have a united approach within the province itself amongst industries. And I just concluded a meeting with industry leaders, union leaders, community leaders to ensure that we have a unified front across industries. And I'm so proud of the people who were just on that call because there is an understanding and appreciation that we do need to be united. As a united team Newfoundland and Labrador, we can participate in a united team Canada. And I do fundamentally believe that this moment in time, given the acuity of it as it pertains to the fiscal realities and economic realities of the tariffs, we can also not lose sight of the issues of national identity and national unity. And rest assured, the president is looking north to see if there's any fractures, if there's any division. And there's no question, given his history and his success in this approach, by the way, credit to him, that he will use those moments, those fractures, if you will, to leverage more value for the people, for him in the United States.
I think over the last week, we've certainly learned about everything each of the provinces is willing to put on the table or not. But I mean, in terms of Newfoundland and Labrador, I mean, give us the numbers. What's at stake for the province?
Sure. So, I mean, we know I'm most interested, of course, in the treasury. I'm most interested in jobs. I'm interested in the treasury as well, but jobs and families, and Lord knows we've had a lot of ups and downs between COVID, inflation, and now this. So I am most concerned about the hardworking women and men and the families in the industries that are going to be protected first and foremost. Some of our quick analysis shows, you know, for example, 1 in 2 of people in the fishing industry could be impacted by this. 1 in 2 of people in the oil and gas sector could be impacted by this. 100% of aquaculture exports outside of Canada go to the United States. 60% of our fishery goes to the United States. Almost 90% of crab goes to the United States. So it will have an incredibly punishing impact on the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. And that was the message that I brought to Ottawa the other day, that while, yes, we are rightfully involved in this back and forth with the United States, we can't lose sight of the workers and the families in these industries in Newfoundland and Labrador. And my proposition to the Prime Minister and to that table was that they need to be ready, not just from a retaliation perspective, but from an internal perspective to support the families, whether that's something like COVID-19 supports or other supports that the federal government has been there in the past to do. As a subnational government, we have limited levers that we can pull. But certainly the national government has monetary policy, has the extent of the Canadian Treasury to help support families, and they have shown a sympathy and a willingness to do just that.
I mean, when you look at the big picture with regard to all the products and exports that are coming out of this province, going straight down to the U.S., I mean, do we have a valuation on what that means to our own bottom line?
We certainly do. I mean, industry specific, for example, I just mentioned the fishery industry. It'll have an incredibly punishing impact on lumber. I believe that's up around, up to 50 to 70%. Oil and gas, 50 to 60% of our oil and gas products go to the United States. So, industry specific, yes. As an estimate of our GDP, yes. But most importantly, this is going to be over, between 10 to 20,000 jobs potentially. And that's just considering the impact of the tariffs themselves, not the subsequent impact of, counter punches on both sides of the border.
How likely do you think this is to happen?
All the advice we're getting is that, unfortunately, the president is likely to implement some form of tariffs. We are hopeful that he comes to his senses and recognizes that in the pursuit of trade inequities, Canada is very small. we're talking about $60 billion, I mean, there's different numbers out there, but there's approximately a $60 billion trade deficit between Canada and the United States. When you look at the overall size of their economy, that's pretty minuscule. There are many more countries with multiples of that trade deficit. And I can understand the president's position for them, but for us, also the narrative and the story has to be told that he's concerned about manufacturing jobs and jobs in the United States. We're concerned about jobs in Canada, but most of what we supply to the United States is resources for them to enable their jobs in the United States. It's a different narrative if you consider a country like China or Mexico, in which they're manufacturing goods and services cheaper than they could in the United States and then importing them into the United States. We're a supplier of raw materials for them, whether that's the energy sector, lumber, critical minerals, some of which they can get no other place now given the geopolitical realities of Russia, Ukraine, and China.
Well, let's talk about oil, because it seems to be the central bargaining point. We know that Premier Danielle Smith is not on side with this idea of banning exports to the U.S. As an oil-producing nation, knowing that Premier Smith went to Mar-a-Lago and had some conversation that ended in a decision that we haven't heard too much about, I mean, how does all this sit with you?
Well, first of all, I mean, we all have our own jurisdiction to look after, but from what I said from the first answer, a divided nation is not in Canadians' best interest. I also think, trips to Mar-a-Lago aside, some of the other positional people in those photos have been arguing for economic union with the United States. I'll be very clear. That is not on the table for me. Our national unity, our national identity, our sovereignty, our independence that has been hard fought and protected by our soldiers and by people who have paid the ultimate sacrifice can never be eroded. So to have a sphere of influence that suggests that economic union with the United States is in Canada's best interest is not on for me. So you may have heard that I'm going to the United States. I'm going to DC for the inauguration. That in no way is to endorse the president, his politics, or his values. It is to go down there and try to ensure that Newfoundland and Labrador's voice is not lost in this mix of a trade war.
As a politician, I'm sure that there have been a lot of conversations about the strategy of dealing with an erratic and unpredictable leader like Trump. And the stakes couldn't be higher. How have you been navigating that? And what is your personal philosophy and thought going into any of these conversations?
So first of all, you're exactly right. It's tough to be fully strategic in an environment of chaos. And look, the president has done quite well in his business life and his political life in creating an environment of chaos, oftentimes not knowing what he wants out of that environment, but extracting value from that chaotic ecosystem, if you will. I am content with the way that we've come together as premiers, that we have what needs to be a strong position, a unified position, an independent and sovereign position going into it. Often as Canadians, we're too humble. We have a very strong position here and we can't back away from it. They need our resources. They have to use our resources. They have to use our pipelines. They have to use our critical minerals. And I think having a unified voice, having a government, a series of governments that understands the need to be proportional but strong and definitive in our response will ultimately, I hope, lead to these tariffs not being implemented in the first place. But if they are being a truncated version or a limited time frame, if you will, it's not our first rodeo at this. Team Canada has been through this before, albeit this is a very different actor this time than last time. But I'll end where I started. We cannot let the acuity and urgency of this situation erode our national identity and our national unity. We are Canada strong, we are Canada proud, and we are Canada sovereign.
Thanks for speaking with us in advance, Premier.
Happy to follow up too when we're done.
Oh, okay. We'll be hearing.
Great.
We'll be listening.
Yeah, we certainly will. Meantime, the Trudeau government says it's ready to respond with counter tariffs on U.S. goods immediately on Monday if Trump follows through with his threats on the first day in office. Tariffs would be costly to both countries, but in Washington today, the foreign affairs minister said Republican decision makers are just waking up to that fact.
When I talk about the tariffs themselves and their impact, people in Washington are surprised. And when I mention the impacts of a Trump tariff tax on Americans, they're not only surprised, they're very worried.
And at a meeting of his newly formed Canada-U.S. Relations Council, Trudeau said nothing is off the table in retaliatory tariffs, but added support will be given to any region or industry that ends up carrying a larger burden of defending Canada. Radio-Canada has confirmed an initial round of counter tariffs would apply to $37 billion in U.S. goods that would be less harmful to the Canadian economy, with a consultation period of 15 to 30 days before they take effect. Former Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland made it clear today she will join the race to replace Justin Trudeau as Liberal Party leader. In a one-sentence post on social media, Freeland said, "I'm running to fight for Canada." And in an op-ed in the Toronto Star, she implied she'd retaliate against any American tariffs dollar for dollar, targeting precisely and painfully. Freeland will officially join the race on Sunday. Former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney launched his campaign yesterday, and sources tell CBC News that Government House Leader Karina Gould will announce her candidacy tomorrow. Resource Minister Jonathan Wilkinson now says he will not join the race. Israel's cabinet is deliberating on whether to ratify this week's Gaza ceasefire agreement. The meeting began this afternoon but has extended into this evening. Early in the day came the news that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's security cabinet had approved it, but there's opposition in the full cabinet. Two hardliners have threatened to resign, one demanding the deal be rejected, the other that the war resumes once the agreement's first phase ends. Israeli warplanes have kept up strikes in Gaza. Officials say more than 100 people have been killed since the agreement was announced Wednesday. Well, it's Friday, so let's find out who's celebrating. Happy 57th anniversary to Herman and Dinah Daw. Anniversary greetings going out to Gregory and Goldie Smith of Chapel Arm. It's their 56th anniversary. Happy 51st anniversary to Marie and Gordon Caines of Pools Cove. A golden anniversary for John and Shirley Penny in Eastport. They've been married 50 years and never a crossword, they say. Happy 66th anniversary to Roy and Charlotte Wolfrey of Lewisport. Frank and Phoebe Blake of Baytona are celebrating their 60th anniversary. Anniversary greetings going out to Jerome and Geraldine Dempsey. They've been married for 53 years. Kenneth and Phyllis Roberts of Fort Tow are celebrating their 67th anniversary. Congratulations. Happy 58th anniversary to Clarice and Doug Robbins of Bonavista. Congratulations to Earl and Mary Oram of Gambo. They've been married 63 years. Happy 60th anniversary to Ron and Phyllis Petal of Chance Cove. Wishing Raymond and Florence Manning a happy 55th anniversary today. Happy 62nd anniversary today to Norman and Marguerite Avery. Happy 50th anniversary to Linda and Amos Francis from Burnt Islands. Anniversary wishes going out to Lou and Carol Stone of Upper Island Cove, who are marking 59 years of marriage. Now to some birthdays. Happy 90th birthday to Nina McGraw of New Bonaventure, now living in Clarenville. Birthday greetings going out to Mita Pye, who just turned 94 in Charlottetown, Labrador. Lily Penny is celebrating her 97th birthday. Best wishes from family and friends. Happy birthday to Pearl Neal of St. John's. She's turning 92. Happy 93rd birthday to Phyllis Newell of Cupids, now living in Clark's Beach. A very happy birthday to Nellie Greenham of Twillingate, who turns 100 today. Best wishes to you on this milestone day. Land and Sea viewers may recognize this gent. John Perrell turned 90 yesterday. Hope you and Phoebe have a wonderful celebration with your family. Happy birthday to Bob Moore of St. John's. It's his 93rd birthday on Sunday. And big birthday wishes going out to Florence Spencer, who turns 105 today. She's from Norman's Cove and now lives in St. John's. Happy birthday to Ross Sampson of Gander. Ross is turning 90. Birthday greetings going out to Robert Chalk of Charlottetown, Bonavista Bay, who just marked his 95th birthday. Wishing Cecilia Walsh in Corner Brook a happy 95th birthday with love from her family. And special greetings to Elizabeth Lewis of Baytona, who's celebrating her 97th birthday. Another fine crowd. Congratulations once again. So Ashley, looking ahead to the long range forecast, we have the warm up coming on the weekend, and then things really
and then everything drops off a ledge. Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. Let's take a look and time things out as we get there. So our Saturday is going to be beautiful as we head towards the overnight. That's when our system is going to start to move in. So we'll start to see some warmer air move in with it. And then into the afternoon, things really get going. So we're looking at some significant rain for southern areas of the island, particularly around the Burgeo area and through to Port aux Basques, where we could see somewhere between 40 to as much as 70 millimeters of rain. That rain snow line should be, depending on exact track of the system, somewhere in southeastern portions of Labrador. So through the afternoon on Sunday, don't be surprised to see a little bit of changeover to rain for even Happy Valley Goose Bay and then southeastern portions of Labrador, and that's because your temperatures will hover around +2. Otherwise, the island looking at somewhere between 4 to 6 degrees as our daytime highs, and with the exception of the northern peninsula. And then we start to see that colder air move back in for Lab City at about -15 through the day and about -7 for Nain. Now, Sunday evening, that rain will eventually push east. We'll see a bit of a break, and then Monday morning ramping up yet again. So another round of showers and then potential or rain even, and potentially some windy conditions as well. Again, this area of low pressure, as it moves through, we'll see that rain snow line likely somewhere around the strait and potentially even into Labrador, but we've definitely got some much colder air on the backside of that system, which, morning might start nice and warm, around 9 degrees in Corner Brook, but that temperature is really going to drop as the day goes on. Most of us across the island will be seeing temperatures between 5 and 11 degrees as our daytime highs on Monday, but again, a drop in behind that, and some windy conditions as well, especially for the northern peninsula, parts of Labrador through the day, and really all along the west coast. You will see some windy conditions. That drop in temperatures, minus 24 for Lab City, otherwise hanging out in the minus single digits for the rest of the Big Land. That drop coming for Tuesday for St. John's and Eastern Newfoundland. We get chances of some flurries that'll continue on Wednesday with the temperature around minus 5. That drop in temperatures, same thing for Central Newfoundland with an unsettled start to the week. And for Western Newfoundland, some squalls will develop, about as 10 will be your afternoon high. Labrador, you are looking at your temperatures dropping as well. Some snow on Monday might be significant. Going to keep an eye on that one. And then Western Labrador, you're looking at some sunshine and temperatures in the minus 20s. Our weather photo of the day in Hopedale. Take a look at this beauty.
Oh, lovely.
Great sky, colorful sky over Hopedale. Thank you for Wayne. Thank you to Wayne for that. If you have any weather photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Oh, you can just smell how crisp that air would be. So nice. Thank you so much for that shot. I love it when we get shots from like northern Labrador.
Me too.
So keep them coming. Well, that's it for us. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us. Hope you have a great weekend.
Good night.